Long ago, before the town were built, before the rivers forgot their name, there was a village hidden deep in the belly of the forest. Its name was Obunta. They say Obunta was protected by spirits. The trees whispered warnings, the winds carried stories, and the land itself remembered. But in the village lived a girl no one wanted. No father, no mother, just her and the voice. Her name was Amara. She was poor, she was quiet, but she could hear what no one else could hear. She heard the dead. Every evening, as the sun faded and the shadows stretched, Amara would walk into the forest. While other children played, she sat by a tree stump, whispering to the air. The villagers mocked her. She talks to leaf. They said she's cursed, but she never stopped. One day she heard something different, not the usual whispers, but a sound, a deep ancient sound that came from beneath the ground. She followed the sound, and beneath an old iroko tree she found it, half buried in red earth, cracked with age, a calabash. It paused like a heartbeat. Hamara. From that day the calabash spoke to her. It told her truths, secrets of the past, warning of the future. She began to help people, told a widow where her lost son's body was buried, helped a farmer avoid a deadly snake in his yam barn, healed a crying baby whose soul was fading. The village began to fear her less. Some even respected her, but the chief, Mazidogo, he saw something else: power. Mazidogo was a man with many wives, many children, and even more enemies. When he heard of the girl and her magic calabash, he summoned her. In his large compound, he seated like a lion. He smiled at her. Amara, I have watched you. You are not ordinary. Let me adopt you as my daughter. Live in my house. Eat from my table. Your gift will serve this kingdom. But Amara knew the calabash whispered it. Do not trust him. His heart is hollow. So she bowed and walked away. The chief smiled, faded. That night he sent his warriors. They came under the cover of darkness, faces painted, knives drawn. Their mission: take the calabash or kill the girl. But one warrior hesitated. His name was Ikenna. He had seen her once by the river singing to the waters. He had never forgotten her voice. When the other warriors entered her hut, Ikenna blocked the door. She is under my protection. He fought his brothers, carried Amara on his back, and they ran into the forest. Behind them, Mazidogo screamed into the night. Deep in the forest, Amara and Ikenna found an old shrine. There, under the full moon, the calabash began to glow. I am Odu, child of the gods. I was sealed by my brothers. My voice brings knowledge, but my freedom brings ruin. Amara trembled. What do you want? To be heard, but not broken. Do not let greedy touch me, or the gods shall return, and they will not come in peace. Back in Opunta, Mazidogo was not finished. Blinded by pride, he broke the calabash, opened in secret, and unleashed something ancient. The calabash, once sealed by the gods themselves, was never meant to be broken. Mazidogo, drunk with power, cracked it open like a nut, ignoring the whispers, ignoring the warnings. And when he did, the sky changed. That morning the sun refused to rise. The village woke under grey skies. The birds silent, the river dry, the goats dead. And in the palace of Mazidogo, his newborn son let out a final cry. The crops began to rot, snakes appeared in wells, children wandered into the forest and vanished. Obunta was cursed, but no one knew why, except one. Far from the village, in the cave of echoes, Amara and Ikenna hid. the calabash now silent, but the air around them heavy. They went to the only person who might understand, Mama Ife, the blind priestess who sees with her spirit. You did well to run, child, but the calabash is not a gift, it is a god. She spoke of Odu, a forgotten deity of knowledge and destruction, banished by his brothers for seeking to control fates. The calabash was his prison, and now he is staring. In Obunta, shadow began to move, even when people did not. At night, voice called out to open from their roof. Some villagers walked into the forest in their sleep and were never seen again. A mother opened a pot of soup and found human teeth inside. Mazidogo knew he had unleashed his horror, but pride would not let him admit it. So instead, he sent hunters, witch doctors, soldiers, all to find one girl, Amara. Mama Ife gave Amara one last prophecy. To stop Odu, you must climb the hill of the forgotten gods, Nta Hills. You must go where no soul returns. Offer your voice, your spirit, and beg the gods for balance. So Amara, Ikena, and Mama Ife began the journey. 3 travelers, one cursed calabash, and a forest watching their every step. They passed through abandoned villages, where everyone had turned to salt, through rivers that flew backward, through plains where the wind told secrets. One night, as the fire burned low, Ikena sat with Amara. There is something I must tell you. He removed a charm from his neck, underneath a scar glowing with spirit fire. I was not always a warrior, Ikena said. Long ago, I was a priest, a servant of Odu. Amara stared at him, heart pounding. I helped trap Odu in the calabash, and in rage, he cursed me to walk the earth until he was free. Now, he calls to me again, but I choose to protect you. Amara's eyes filled with tears. Then we must finish what you started together. On the 7th day, they reached the final barrier before Nta Hills, a river that spoke in riddles, its water silvers, its surface a mirror. From the middle rose a beautiful woman, her skin glowing like moonlight. Who dared disturb the path of the gods? To cross me, give me what you love most. Mama Ife offered a staff, Ikena offered his sword. But when it comes to Amara, give me your voice. Amara hesitated. She was born with nothing but her voice, had always been hers. She opened her mouth and gave it away. The river parted. They climbed for days, cold winds, thin air, the top of the world where the god once walked. At the summit stood 5 giant stones, each carved with forgotten faces. In the middle, a throne made of bones. There the gods returned. At the peak of Nta Hill, where no bird dares to fly, Amara stood before the ancient stone. The wind howled, the bones of the throne creaked, and from the sky they came. 5 pillars of flame, 5 voices that sound like earth, fire, wind, water, and shadow. You bring the broken one, you bring Hodu. From Amara's statue, the calabash cracked open. Smoke curled into the air, and then he emerged. A figure of half shadow, half light, eyes like dying stars, the god Odu. The gods surrounded Amara, Ikena, and Mama Ife. They spoke not in words, but in memory. They showed visions of Odu creating knowledge for humankind, of Odu wanting to give them power, too much power, of his betrayal and punishment, of Ikena, the priest, sealing him in the calabash centuries ago. Then they turned to Amara. You, child of the dust, why have you brought this curse to us again? Amara couldn't speak. Her voice had been taken by the river maiden, but she knelt and placed her hand on her chest. She offered her soul. The gods murmured among themselves. Odu laughed. She is stronger than all of you, a mortal offering herself for others. You banished me, yet your creation begged for my return. The god of water said, "You would burn the world to teach a lesson." Odu replied, "No, I would burn it to cleanse it." The gods turned to Ikena. "And you, cursed, to walk until the balance is restored. Will you give your life or ours?" Ikena stepped forward. "Take mine." Amara tried to stop him. She reached for him, tears falling, but the gods shook their head. God of wind, it is not your sacrifice that matters, it is hers. The calabash glowed. Odu stared at Amara, and for the first time, he bowed his head. "Odu, I do not want to be sealed again, but if this child, this nobody, can carry my voice into the world, then let her speak." He placed his hand on her chest. Her voice returned. "I do not wish to seal you. I wish to teach them to listen." The gods debated, to destroy Odu forever, to seal him again, or to trust a human. At last, the oldest of them spoke, God of Shadow. "Let her carry his voice, but if he rises again, she will fall with him." The sky darkened. The throne of bones collapsed. The calabash melted into Amara's chest, and she glowed with a golden light. They descended the hill slowly. Mama Ife sang song no one had heard in centuries. Ekena walked beside Amara. Silence changed. When they reached Obunta village, the village was ruined. Dead crops, empty streets, shadows still wandering. Amara lifted her hand and spoke a single word. "Peace." And the wind obeyed. At the palace, Mazidogo was waiting. Old, thin eyes sunken. The curse had taken everything. When he saw Amara, he laughed. "So the girl returns. Will you kill me?" Amara shook her head. "No, you will live. To walk these streets, to see what your greed destroyed." She turned her back to him, and as she walked away, his shadow stayed frozen, whispering regrets. Season passed, Obunta began to heal. Children sang again, the river flowed. Amara became legend. Some say she vanished into the forest, others say she became a spirit. But on quiet nights, when the wind blows through the trees, you can hear a calabash whispering. She is the balance, she is the voice. Years passed. The name Amara became legend. Some said she was the voice of a god, others said she was a god. But stories like rain fall in seasons, and soon a new season began. In the village of Obunta, a child was born. The sky was clear, the birds silent, the drum of celebration refused to beat. Her name was Nnena. From the moment she came into the world, the wind stopped blowing. In her presence and the air listened. She didn't cry for the first 3 days. On the fourth, she opened her eye and whispered a word no one taught her. Odu. As she grew, strange things began to happen. Nena would sit beside the river and the water would rise to meet her hand. At night, she spoke in her sleep, spoke in Amara's voice. She dreamed of things she couldn't know. She talked to fire, she hummed to stone. The herder called her cursed. Some wanted her sent away, but one old woman came forward. She carries her spirit. Mama Ife took Inena deep into the forest to a shrine no one visited, covered in vines, surrounded by silence. There Nena heard it. She has returned. But not all is well. Nena eyes whined. What do you mean? The gods sleep, but a man has awakened something worse. In a faraway land, a new king had risen, a man called Ezudu the Ashmaker. He wore bones of ring, and his shadow walked faster than him. He had heard whispers of a calabash, a vessel of power, a girl who walked with gods. So he began his march, destroying village after village, looking for the one who listened to spirits. and now his eyes turned to Obunta. Nena began to hear Amara's voice. My child, my echo, the gods gave me their voice, now I give it to you. Nena was taught how to speak to winds, how to call water from rock, how to hear pain in silence. Mama Ife taught her how to control it, but time was short. The Ash King was coming. One night, as fireflies danced in the trees, a man walked into the village, grey, beard, scar still glowing. It was Ikenna, still alive, still walking, cursed to remain until balance was finally fulfilled. He saw Inenna and bowed. I have seen your soul before. Nena dreamed of burning trees, screaming rivers, a broken throne. And each time the calabash called out, Odu. I cannot fight him, you must. But to do so, she would need to awaken the gods again. And so, with Mama Ife and Ikenna by her side, Nena began the journey that Amara once took. Back to Nta Hill, back to the place where gods sleep. The forest resisted, the river cried, but Nena pushed on. And when she reached the summit, there were no gods, only dust and silence. That night, she sat on the throne of bones, closed her eye, and whispered, Amara, are you there? The wind answered, but it wasn't Amara. No, child, she failed, and now you will fail too. The gods didn't sleep, they were trapped. The Ash King was not a man, he was the shadow behind Odu, the part of Odu that wanted chaos and destruction, that had escaped when the calabash was broken. Now he had taken form and he was almost here. Only Inenna, the last child of Amara's spirit, could stand against him. But would she survive? Inenna had one choice left: run from the darkness or become its light. Obunta trembled. From the east, the sky turned black. Men with faces painted in suits marched forward. At their head, the Ash King, cloaked in smoke, his crown made from the skulls of fallen kings. He didn't speak, he didn't blink, he pointed. And the fire began. As the village burned, Inenna stood in its center, alone, small, shaking, but then a soft wind cycled her. The voice of Amara returned. You carry not just my voice, you carry every whisper that was ever silenced. From behind her, the spirits of the past appeared. Elders, warriors, mothers, even children. They gathered not to fight but to stand, to remind the Ash King this land had not forgotten its roots. The Ash King raised his hand, shadow burst from his fingers, devouring anything it touched. Nena raised hers. Odu speak. From her chest a glow burst out. Odu's spirit now changed, no longer angry but wise. I was the mistake, but she is the correction. Nena lifted both arms and screamed. Light and shadow collided. The Ash King was powerful, a shadow born from Odu's rage and man's greed. To destroy him would require one final act, the breaking of the calabash forever. But doing so would silence Odu and silence the spirit he had protected. Nena thought to Ikenna, if I destroy the calabash, will the voices ever return? No, they will become echoes forever fading. She looked at the spirit behind her and then at the terrified children hidden in huts. She smiled and placed the calabash on the ground. Let them rest. She lifted her foot and shattered it. The Ash King screamed. His body crumbled like dust. The shadow vanished, and for the first time in many lifetimes, there was silence, not of fear, but of peace. The sun rose, warm, slow, golden, and the wind blew without whispers. Nena disappeared that day. Some say she became the wind, some say she was taken by the gods. But one thing is true: every dry season, the sky turns gold for a single day. The river sings a wordless tune, and the tree sways without wind. That is when they say, the voice has slept. A little boy sat at the forest edge.
He held an old guard in his hands. There he heard nothing, he sees nothing. He stand and walk away. And the story begins again. If you love interesting stories like this, please do well to subscribe to our YouTube channel, and we will see you on our next video. Thank you. Stay blessed.